everyone. I hope all of you are doing great and are safe. Today marks the day where we start with our first e-learning session. So, I hope that you're going to enjoy your time while we study. Before we get started, I recommend that you save this video and transfer them on your laptops or iPads if you have one. This way you will have a better quality of the slides. I would also like to remind you that if you have any inquiries or questions to ask, make sure you send an email to this following email address. Started. When do we use reported speech? When we want to repeat what someone had previously said. Let's take this example. Tommy said, column and quotation marks, I am tired. So these were the exact words of Tommy. What about if I want to repeat what Tommy said? Do I keep the same words? Of course not. I have to change the structure. So the reported speech means my repetition of Tommy's words. Tommy said that she was tired. Note that you can include that and you can simply say Tommy said she was tired. Let's have a look at this photo. I like Peter. She said she liked you. I'm pretty sure you've experienced similar scenarios when you heard something someone had said and that you wanted to tell her or his exact words to a friend of yours. So, next time you do that, you know now that this is called a reported speech. Now, this is something that you already know and you've studied in French and Arabic, and I'm pretty sure you came across it in English language. But we're just going to study today this grammar lesson thoroughly. So, if the verb in the direct speech is in the present tense, well, it's easy peasy. You don't have to complicate yourself. You just add she says or he says, depending on the subject, and the reported speech would look something like this. She says she likes ice cream. Do not forget to conjugate a verb so that it agrees with the subject. However, note that if the reported speech is in the past tense, things can get cheesy. Here is a table that summarizes the change in the verb tenses. If the direct speech is in the present simple, like she always wears a coat, I have to change the present simple into the past simple. So the reported speech would look like she always wore a coat. Of course, I have to add he said and she said or whatever the subject is. If the direct speech is in present continuous, I change it into past continuous. Like am looking becomes was looking. If it's present perfect, has written, it becomes had written. I change it into past perfect. If it's past simple, I have to change it into past perfect, which looks like had plus given. Given here, guess what form it is? Well, yes, you guessed it right. It's past participle. Will becomes would. I will finish my report in 2 days. And the reported speech or the indirect speech is he said that he would finish his report. Can becomes could because could is the past form of can. May becomes might. Must becomes had to, and have to also becomes had to. Now, please, after I finish this chart, make sure you read it carefully so that you don't forget. Now, I think you will ask me if I should memorize this. Well, the question is no. You don't have to memorize anything. You just have to understand the change in the verb tenses. And with a bit of practice, I think things might get better. Occasionally, we don't need to change the present tense into the past if the information in the direct speech is a fact. What do I mean by that? As you know, fact is something that nobody can argue about its credibility. It's a general truth and it's scientifically proven. So let's take this example. The sky is blue. Of course, nobody can argue with you that the sky is white or if it's black. So it's a fact. The reported speech, because the information in here is a fact, you can keep the tense as it is, okay? Or you can change it into past simple. Move on. Of course, we don't only have reported statements, we also have reported questions. Let's have a look at this. Where do you live? Well, imagine someone asks you this question and you want to tell another friend that a friend of yours asked this. How would you say that? Can you please think of the structure? Or how do you think we're going to make this question in the indirect speech? Please make sure you pause the video for less than a minute and think of the possible structures. Here we are. The tense changes are the same in the reported questions, but the question words they are kept the same. Well, you studied the question words in grade 6, but let me remind you for those who forgot, question words are words that start with WH, like what, where, but with the exception of how. Although how does not start with WH, well, it's considered to be a question word. So, once we tell the question to someone, it isn't a question anymore. So we have to change the direct speech, which is in the question form, and change it into a statement. Well, a bit confusing, right? Well, don't worry, it gets easier. Let's take this example. Where do you live? If I want to change it into a reported speech, first of all, I make sure that this becomes a statement. So if it becomes a statement, we just have to remove the question mark. That's one. Second, since it starts with a WH question, I have to keep it the same. I have to keep the question word as it is. So she asked me where I lived. Of course, here we no longer use told or said. Instead, we have to use asked. So, do you see how I made it? The direct question in the present simple tense. We have to keep the W question word as it is and remove the question mark. Here are a few more examples. Where is the post office, please? She asked me where the post office was. What are you doing? She asked me what I was doing. Who was that fantastic man? She asked me who that fantastic man has been. So note that here it's a past simple. That's why I have put had and been. So, as we move on with the questioning words, of course, we don't have that type of words, of question words in English. We also have something called as direct or reporting questions that includes only yes or no questions. Such questions begin with do or does, like do you like chocolate? In this case, I don't have a question word, so how am I supposed to start? Simply by adding if before the question. So she asked me if I like chocolates. To report a negative request, use not. So please don't be late. Here I can see the negativity and I can definitely sense that the request is negative. So in this case, I have to put not even before the verb, but please make sure that you use not to and not to not. So adding to not is a wrong grammatical structure. Make sure you use not to. Reported request. So after clarifying the concepts of reported questions, now it's the turn of request. What do you do if someone asks something from you? Of course, in a polite way. So here we have different structures of someone asking politely about something. Close the window, please. Or could you close the window, please? Would you mind closing the window, please? These three are different forms of making a request, but the difference between them is that they vary in degrees. So I would say the last one is the most polite form. So, in order to report a request, what do? We simply use ask me to an infinitive. So let me remind you that infinitive means you use to plus base form of the verb. So let's take this one per se. Close the window, please. It becomes she asked me to close the window. And please make sure that you add to before the verb. Here's another table that clarifies the concept. Please help me. She asked me to help her. See how I'm adding to? Please don't smoke. Here is a negative form, so it becomes not to smoke. Could you bring my book tonight? She asked me to bring her book that night. Or could you pass the milk, please? She asked me to pass the milk. And you can as well read it after I finish. Coming back to the reported orders. Orders are not polite at all, as you see. They are usually done in order to impose an idea. Imagine a police officer. Do you think that a police officer is going to request or give an order to you? Well, you guessed it right. Of course, give an order. So let's have a look at this. Sit down. In fact, we make this reported speech in the same way as a request, but only we have to replace tell with ask. Here are a few more examples. Go to bed. He told the child to go to bed. Don't worry. He told her not to worry. Be on time. He told me to be on time. And don't smoke. He told us not to smoke. Did you recognize something? That usually imperative statements are, or they end up with an exclamation mark. So this is going to make it easier for you to identify them. What are the time expressions with the reported speech? Now, of course, let's say it's Monday. Julie says, I'm leaving today. And you have to say this on another day. Let's take an example. So if Julie said it on Monday and you are repeating what she's saying on Tuesday, would you still say that today? Of course not. You have to change it with another time expression, in this case, on yesterday. So, if I tell someone on Tuesday, I say Julie said she was leaving yesterday. If I say it on Wednesday, I have to say it on Monday. And if I say it a month later, then I have to specify and say that is a table for the time expressions. Today becomes that day, now, then, tonight, that night, ago, before, yesterday, the day before, last, the previous day, last week, the week before, next year becomes the following year, tomorrow, the next day, here, there, this, that, and these, those. So please make sure that while you're changing direct speech into an indirect or reported speech, you revise it and add these time expressions. Uh, for further practice, make sure you click on this link below and have access to Perfect English Grammar website and choose the reported speech exercises. It ranges from easy up until hard and difficult. So if you feel like you want more practice to feel more confident, make sure you practice online. Plus, for those who still haven't done their assignments, make sure you open your books and workbooks and finish these 2 pages. For those who have already done their assignments, make sure you correct the lesson after the instruction that I have given. So next time I will be posting the answer key along with a new grammar lesson.